only Miss Georgia Allen, that community activist. How you doing? How you doing?
I am doing fantastic, fantastic. Got so much going on into my head. It's like ready to blow off because it's so hard to keep up with everything that's going on. You know me, I believe in the principle of Kwanzaa, and I told you to do Ujamaa today, which is cooperative economics, which is fine because there's a lot of things going on with economics here in Hampton Roads in Virginia Beach, and we definitely want to talk about that a little bit. But before we get started, first and foremost, I am Georgia F. Allen, and I am the host of GA for Just Is, simply because it just is the right time to do the things that are right on behalf of our community. Um, Again, we're going to talk a little bit about Ujamaa, Ugamaa, which is cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. So it's very important that we recognize that we are to create our own businesses. We're not to rely on other people to do that for us. That's up to us. And as I come to you today, I'm going to talk a little bit about economics, but I'm going to also talk to you a little bit about politics, because it's hard not to talk about politics in this day and age when there's so much going on in our community and all around the country. I'd like to thank Henderson Vaughn for opening up the airwaves, bringing and providing us with an opportunity to share with the community about the things that are going on here in Hampton Roads, here in Virginia Beach, and there's some things across the nation as well. I always say that we have a conversation. We simply come on the air to have a conversation, and this conversation that we have for our listening audience is a conversation for information. It is a conversation for correction when necessary, as well as a conversation for transformation. And we do that because we have noticed over time is that the media has stopped being the media. The media has transformed itself and did calisthenics and everything else but report actual news. They report a lot of gossip. They report a whole lot of, what is hot, what gets clicks and all of this stuff. But in terms of reporting a lot of the legitimate news, like we used to hear back in the Bernard Shaw days and the Max Robinson days and the Gwen Eiffel days, we don't tend to hear a lot of true journalism anymore. And so we have this platform that I feel I must be a stewardship of the platform. And for those of you who know me, I believe that we should be a stewardship of all things. If we have a vehicle, we should be good stewards of that. If we go to church and we put money in the collection plate, we should require those in the church who are spending the money to be good stewards of the money that is placed in the collection plate on Sunday morning. And so I operate from those principles of being accountable to others as we navigate these systems, because that's what it is. It's a bunch of systems. It's a bunch of institutions that we navigate through all the time. And so I wanted to kind of share just a little with you today. It is also Women History Month. And we want to celebrate our women. We want to celebrate our women from all walks of life, because while we may talk about or edify some of the women of yesteryear or today and all, we want to edify all of our women, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of their socioeconomics place in society. We want to recognize and encourage all of our women in our community. It's important because sometimes we have a tendency to constantly click on the shiny object, and we forget about the fact that there are persons who work their whole entire lives doing little things every day to make a difference. Maybe it's that mother in the household who has a family of her own, but always has a plate on the table, an extra plate at the table for her child's friend who may not have enough to eat at his house or her house. And so that extra plate that she has on that table feeds another young person. And so those people may not never be seen in lights. Those women may not never have their name in the newspaper except for when they pass away. But those are people equally, if not more, who should be recognized and honored. So today, I want to honor a few women. Some of you may have heard of them, and some you may not have heard of them, but I want to recognize three today for Women's History Month. And it's Shirley Chisholm, because her movie is about to come out tomorrow. And Regina is going to be playing her, and I can't think of Regina's last name right now. But anyway, Shirley Chisholm was born November the 30th, 1924, and she passed away January 1, 2005. She was a former U.S. Congresswoman for New York City, where she served 7 terms. She ran for the Democratic Party's nomination for president in 1972. 1972. And actually, she was the first woman to run for the party's presidential nomination. The first woman, not the first Black woman, not the first woman from Barbados, not the first woman of color. She was the first woman to run for president on a national party's, under a national party's platform. While in Barbados, she excelled in school, but when she got to America, she got her formal education and her college degree here in the United States, where she ultimately worked in childhood education. But one of her signature pieces of legislation while serving in the U.S. Congress was to expand food and nutrition programs for the poor. And many of us know how important it is that a child has food to eat. It changes their psyche. It tends to make them do better in school when they have enough to eat. And so, although she may not have had thousands of pieces of legislation personally, and I say that because many people go to Congress and they become co-sponsors of legislation. They don't necessarily have to start the legislation. They can become co-sponsors, and we kind of dismiss that if someone didn't write out the piece of legislation. But that was important to her. Children were important to her. Education was important to Shirley Chisholm. And so I did want to recognize her, as her movie is about to drop tomorrow night, I do believe, on Netflix, because I turned it on last night because I wanted to watch, and they said it'll be on in a couple of days. So I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but I definitely plan on watching Shirley Chisholm. And when I talk about cooperative economics and I talk about Ujamaa, let me tell you, what we do in society changes our economics, our outcome, and well-being. And I say that again because a lot of times we look at economics in a little tiny finite way, like how much we spent on this or how much we did that. But economics is also the laws that are changed to make your life better. That can be economics as well, because if a congressperson is passing a law that will change how much you're being charged on something, guess what? That's economics.
Hello.
That is economics. And so I always like to try my best to make things make sense in various areas and how these things cross and as people would say, they kind of cohabitate with one another. They come together with one another, even though one may be politics and one may be economics in the traditional form of going to the store and making a purchase. Economics that Shirley Chisholm did was through legislation. Now, I love her saying, I love her quote. She was unbought and unbossed. And I love that about her, because when she ran for office, a lot of people said, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But what she understood, and this is something that people have to understand, because we have all these people that are determining, well, I don't want to vote, and, I don't have anybody to vote for. And, there's just so much stuff going on, and I'm angry about this and I'm angry about that. Well, what Dr. Chisholm understood is she understood that if she ran for the presidency on a major platform, she gains delegates. Well, when you gain those delegates, it gives you leverage, and it allows you to put some of the things that are important to you in the national platform. So all of you folks out here who are upset about this nation and that nation, and upset about this and that and the third, and well, we didn't, prices went up and this went up. Run for office. Run for office. And maybe you won't get elected, but guess what? Just maybe you will get enough delegates to allow you to transform the national platform. So running for office and getting elected to office and being involved in politics have many, many rewards. And I want you to understand that. And it is also economics, because everything about politics pretty much is about economics. It's about how much food people are going to get. It's where they're going to be able to live. It's what type of jobs going to be created in your community. That's all about politics, and it's all about economics. Now, the next person I want to recognize is Dr. Pauli, Pauli Murray. And Dr. Pauli Murray, and that's Pauli, Murray, Murray. And some of you may have heard of her. Some of you may not have heard of her. But Dr. Pauli Murray was a civil rights activist way back in the day. She was a national civil rights activist and did work in the area of, she was a pioneer for Black women, but she was also a pioneer for the LGBTQ community back in the day. And a lot of people didn't know about it, but she did a lot of work on behalf of the community. And what is so exciting about Dr. Pauli Murray is that they are going to put her face on a quarter for a temporary period of time. I don't think it's going to stay, because, they keep changing up all these quarters now. And so she is going to be featured on a U.S. quarter. And when I saw that, I said, well, let me announce it just in case other people have not yet heard about it and they want to try to get some of those quarters, because they're only going to stay in circulation for a short period of time. But I want you to read about Pauli Murray and some of the work that she did on behalf of women, as well as on behalf of the LGBTQ community when it wasn't popular. She was willing to step up, stand up, and fight for others that were being discriminated against. And so her quote that I like about Pauli was, "Hope is a song in a weary throat." Let me repeat that. Hope is a song in a weary throat. Now, we're living in today's time when some people that will feel like, oh gosh, it's almost like it's hopeless. There's nothing to hope for. Things are challenging. I'm going through some tough times. Well, guess what? we've been through tough times before as a community, as individuals, and somehow, some way, we always find a way to come out of these tough times, to make things better, to do things differently, to do what needs to be done in order to get a better outcome. Because what we have a tendency to do is we forget that we have power. And so when we sit around and we act like and we give away all of our power, then we have a situation on our hand where we're not able to get the things done that we need to do. In her case, she was a fighter, and I love fighters. I don't care who it is. I want somebody that's willing to put some skin in the game and willing to roll up their sleeve and get on the field. And so that's what I really liked about Paulie Murray. Now the last person, and Paulie, I thought I had a birthday, but I don't. She too has passed away, and unfortunately, she passed away pretty young. Now the next person is Tarana, Tarana Burke, Burke. She is an American activist and a business executive. And some of us know Twana Burke because she is actually the person who put together the Me Too movement before it was co-opted, as many things are. We get a great idea, we put it together, and then along comes some folks, and they decide that they're going to claim it as their own.
Hello.
But the harsh part about it a lot of times is not only do they claim it, but they rearrange it, reframe it, and they make it into something that was not its original intention. So that people know who Tawana Burke is. And she's a young lady born in 1973. So she's only 50 years old. And she's from Bronx, New York. So for those of you who, like myself, who have once lived in New York, or those of you who were born in New York, because we sometimes have New York listeners out there, and some of them are from Bronx. So from the Bronx, I should say, the Bronx. Tawana Burke, she started the Me Too movement back in 2006. And then, of course, it picked up steam after the lady testified against the Justice Kavanaugh, and they started picking up steam. And then someone claimed that someone had sexually assaulted them, and then it picked up some more steam. And Tawana was not looking to just arbitrarily say someone has sexually assaulted a woman. She was looking to identify the actual assaults, because we all know that everybody don't tell the truth about everything. And so you could run into situations where people claim something happened to them that did not happen. And so she was interested in working with actual victims of sexual abuse. And she sought to assist the survivors of sexual violence, and especially women of color. And so she focused on social issues when she was younger, and racial discrimination and housing inequality. In the late 1980s, she joined the 21st Century Youth Leadership Movement, an organization dedicated to youth development. She went on and got a degree and graduated from Alabama State University, and then moved to Selma, where she continued her work for the 21st Century. And while with the organization, she came in contact with an African-American female survivors of sexual abuse. And Burke, also a survivor of sexual violence, began to provide information and counseling for these young women. So she had a specific reason. It wasn't to try to just arbitrarily just say, I've been a victim of sexual abuse. She would literally working to help and educate young people and persons during that time with regards to surviving and thriving. And so she started she coined the phrase "Me Too" while talking with a survivor of sexual assault. And from there, she formed the Me Too movement. So just simply saying Me Too when she was speaking with young people who had experienced sexual assault, she said, and Me Too. And that's how the Me Too movement actually got started. She began promoting empowerment through empathy, and the movement continued to expand to include leadership training for survivors and bring programs and healings to them. And so, of course, in 2017, with the situation with the Harvey Weinstein and others, other people grabbed a hold of it and brought it to higher prominence and kind of co-opt and maybe changed some of the things. And while we definitely want to address the culprits who attack our women, those of us who have sons and brothers, fathers, uncles, we do not want that movement to be misused and just arbitrarily say, someone touched me on the shoulder, that's sexual assault, because we saw that in a video where a little boy was just in the store and accidentally bumped into someone, and this lady had a conniption to try to say this child rubbed her, when in fact he had bumped into her and never touched her, but it was an object that he had in his hand that actually was what touched her. And so that's why I'm talking in the manner that I am, because I want us to be careful as we do what we do and as we say what we say. Getting to cooperative economics in the traditional form, in the traditional sense. As many of you know, I am a member of the NAACP and have been a member of the NAACP for over 3 decades. And civil rights covers all spectrums. It covers from economics to housing to politics to healthcare to the environment to our young people. And so one of the things that we are doing this year with our Economic Development Committee is we have what we call Restaurant Week. And Restaurant Week allows us to identify restaurants from people in our own community so we can do what we were supposed to do in the first place, as I said, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and our own businesses, and to profit from them together. So in order for us to do that, we have to support our own businesses. We cannot sit here and encourage people to grow up, get an education, get a good job, and then once they get that job and they learn everything that they can about this industry or that industry, and they start their own business, we decide that I don't know if I want to support them. Well, we want you to support our own businesses. It is very important that we support our own businesses. It's very important that if there are Black-owned restaurants, that we support Black-owned restaurants. If there are Black doctors and lawyers and other businesses, our Economic Development Committee push for us to support our own real estate agents, to support our own developers and those who are building our homes, and look for persons like ourselves who are in those various industries. And if there's a need, let's, as much as we can, buy from those who are coming from our community. because that is what's going to make us strong, but it is also what is going to allow us to be able to hire our children and to groom and develop them to also become business owners, so that they are put in a position where they can sustain themselves long term, instead of waiting for the next axe to drop. And now this company is laying off and this company is laying off. The main thing that we want to do is, when we help our children and our community develop their own businesses, that we do support them. We also want to make sure that they're sustainable, that they're solid, that they're not in business one day and then they're out of business the next day. We also want to recognize that we are not here to just compete against each other. Sometimes we need to collaborate and join forces with each other. If we have X amount of soul food restaurants and they're not spread out all over the whole city, but they're all packed in one district, that might not be a smart move. A smarter move may be for you to go to that other business owner and say, hey, let's work together and have one soul food restaurant here. And now we are able to make more money. I used to tell contractors all the time, because there were a number of small contractors and they were getting small contracts, and sometimes mini contracts, little MINI, not MANY. They were getting little mini contracts. And I said, well, why don't you, if you're have a janitorial business and this guy over here has a janitorial business, why don't you sit down and work together? And then instead of bidding on a $100,000 contract, now that you're joining forces, maybe you can bid on a $500,000 contract. I said, I think a $500,000 is a lot more than $100,000. So wouldn't it make sense for you to look at ways that you can join forces and come up with a different name? If it was your personal name on the business and his personal name on the business, then just change the business name to use a part of your name and a part of his name or whatever. But look at ways that you can collaborate together. So that is another thing that I think has been happening in our community, is that we forget that there are times when we should work alone, but there are also times when we should collaborate and work together. And I want us to begin to look at those things and build on that. And the other thing that I've learned over time, because we always would get so upset when we had that black business, like a fashion fair or another product that we really love, like Carol's Daughter or different things, and they sold the product line to someone else, and we have been using their products for years and years, and we're upset because it's no longer black owned. And over time I had to rethink that idea, and that sometimes it is okay to sell those businesses. We hope in many instances, even after they sell it, that they still own a portion of the business, so that you don't feel like you're giving all of your money away to other communities. That when those businesses are sold, that they're sold in a manner that they still hold a portion of ownership of it, even though it may be 10%, and that they are also receiving continual profits from that business, because then we the customer don't feel like we're giving all of our money away to other persons. We're still promoting and supporting black owned businesses, even though it's not as large as it once was, or it's not 100% owned. I shouldn't say as large, because in most instances those businesses grow to be much, much larger. And do we have something you want to share with us, Henderson, as a business owner yourself,
Well,
with regards to some of the comments that I'm making about collective cooperative economics today.
yeah, it's kind of like when people, because in our community, if you go and sit at a bargaining table with the, people that's in business, some people might feel it, and then some people feel as you a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what stagnate. This is what keep us from growing. Because I don't care. When I ran clubs and restaurants, like I tell anybody, I can't get all the people in my building.
Correct.
Put them all in there. So if we
Correct.
work together, I would, even when I got crowded at every club I ran, I tell people, look, I'm gonna send you over to my man. He's gonna let you in free. Take your people, go over there. And because I can't let no more people in, next week I'll let you and your guest in, and I'll give you complimentary food.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't get overcrowded. I know the numbers. I know how many people I can keep in the building. Go
Mm-hmm.
to the next guy. He's right down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And most time they would go there and come back the next night and say, hey, I went to where you were. I had a nice time, but you did tell me if I went, you would compliment me and my guests to come in free and give us some complimentary food. And that's what I did. So it's not about, people look at the more people you get, you got to understand is the crowd is going to cause a problem with the city, police department, fire department. So if you keep your numbers down to where you need to keep them at, and when I went to Luxury Brown, I closed my doors at by 11:30. I was packed, and I would not let no more people in. I tell them
Unless somebody was leaving.
no. I used to do that.
At 11, that was it.
That was it.
That was it. Okay.
If you went out, you might be able to go out and get some fresh air and come back in. Because what happened is you're holding the people out there. And like I tell people, when I run clubs, they don't want to leave. Ain't nobody leaving to go to a club when they in there. They gonna stay. So why am I gonna hold 50 to 100 people standing outside knowing they can't get in?
Correct.
Standing, hey, this said we closed for the doors closed. And that's what I did at Luxury Brown. And same thing with even when I ran Picasso, I would tell them this is it, because somebody else has got, if I got all the people, if I'm crowded, that means somebody ain't got room for other people.
Absolutely. And that's a good analysis to make, because again, if you own a business, you're not able to you may not be able to service everybody. And so if that's the case, there's other options out here. I mean, I've gone to Black-owned restaurants who had odd hours.
Yeah.
And so I would look online and see if they're open or not. And because I knew that they had odd hours, I would check in advance before I would go to their restaurant. And because there are a number of other restaurants that I can choose from, I would just choose another restaurant and then visit with them another time. And so we also have to keep that in mind, is that don't lock yourself into a situation where you feel like you don't have options. You have a lot of options out here. There are a lot of businesses out here that we can patronize.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I'm going to do my announcements for the week again. This week is Restaurant Week for the NAACP. Do you have that flyer by chance that you can pop up on the screen so people can see it?
Let me see.
Simply so that they can see it. And I just want to remind people how important it is to support our own businesses. And then the other thing is, if you have not been to any of the restaurants this week, you can click on to vbnaacp.org. That's vbnaacp.org, and see the restaurants that we patronize this week. We patronize what you call them, smoothie shops. We patronize African restaurants. We are patronizing Caribbean restaurant. We wanted people to see there are a variety of different menus, and food options out here. Last night we patronized an African restaurant. Delicious food, absolutely delicious. So if you're familiar with various smoothie shops, check and find out who the owners are. There's a smoothie stop on Virginia Beach Boulevard. There's a We Care and a Happy Cafe. There are all of these different Black-owned restaurants that you can pull up, visit with. Cobalt, close to the off Alaskan Road. There, Montego. So we are not without options. And I called out some names of restaurants. You can pick and choose for yourself what you want to, where you want to go. But if you go online to VB, Virginia Beach, NAACP.org, that's VBNAACP.org, you're able to go online and not only see what we're doing this week for Restaurant Week, but see some of the other things that we've done throughout the year so far. From our Jubilee Day service, where we had members of our community supporting us, churches supporting us. We've had different groups and organizations supporting us, and we want to shout them out. Today is not the day that I'm going to shout everybody out, but I do plan to shout out a number of businesses that have been very supportive of the things that we're doing in order to have a positive impact on the community, because civil rights is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And when you're doing civil rights, you have volunteers, and so when you have volunteers, you ask of them certain things, and sometimes they get them done and sometimes they don't. So if sometimes we are a little slow in getting back to you, don't hold it against us. We are getting to these things. Sometimes we have persons in the civil rights organization who are on travel and they don't necessarily have a backup to them because it is volunteer. And so I say that because I want you to understand that we are still working, even though sometimes it's not as many hands and feet and arms and everything to work. We are still working on your behalf. Another announcement. Many of you know that I did put in the application for the school board position. Well, on Tuesday the 26th will be the day of our interview. It will also be the day that they will decide who they are going to appoint. Now, they'll go into closed session, but when they come out and vote, they will vote in public. And so it is open to the public because we will be interviewing on that day. And they should be sending something out soon, an announcement of the times of the interview. I know what time we have to be there, but that is not the time that the interviews are necessarily going to get started. The other thing is, once they make that candidate announcement of who they're going to appoint, the very next day will be the swearing in. So on the 26th, we will all get interviewed, but on the 27th, the person that they decide to appoint will be the person who will serve in District 4 on the school board. And that is the day that they will get sworn in and the orientation will begin for that service. Another announcement that I want to make, some of you may be aware of the 10-1 election system and also the lawsuit that prevailed to allow us to have a 10-1 district voting system. Well, as always, when you're out here on the battlefield and you're fighting for justice and you're fighting to bring about changes in the community, there will always be someone out there that pushes back against what you're trying to achieve or accomplish. And so we did. We had a gentleman to put a lawsuit in to say that what was done was wrong. Well, today we pull up, it's announced that that case has been dismissed. So if you have not heard yet, that case was dismissed. Now, that is one of the cases. There's also another case that is still out there and is still pending. So we will be hearing probably from that case as well. But the General Assembly voted to keep the 10-1 system in place. And so it'll be another term before the General Assembly will look at the 10-1 system again, and that would be in 2025. Now, when you change a voting system and you have an election, and then you have a second election, basically that system is in place. All right. When you have an election with the change in a system, which we had in 2022, we will have another election in 2024 for persons whose time is up on the school board as well as the city council. There will be an election in November. That will be twice that this new voting system has been used. So that is to the advantage of the plaintiffs like myself and like Ms. Holloway, who filed the lawsuit, won the lawsuit, and we now have to deal with the shuffling of persons who still do not want to change their behavior. Now, keep in mind, the citizens wanted a change. Over 80% of the citizens said that they prefer the 10-1 voting system versus the hybrid at large, living in districts, and then still have to vote at large as well. So we feel confident that because it was done correctly, that things will continue to work in our favor. As you can see there, the some of the restaurants are up on the system, and then we have the one for today, which is the 21st, and then tomorrow the 22nd, and then on the 23rd. So we have 3 more. Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So for those of you who are out there in the listening audience, NAACP is using its tools in its toolbox to try to enhance, empower, and create opportunities within our own community. So when folks are out there saying, why do we need an NAACP, or what are they doing? This is one of the things that the NAACP is doing on behalf of the community. And while we could not put every single solitary business out there right now, we do intend to have some pop-up events to promote our own businesses. We hopefully we have a business summit, or either participate with some that are already in place, so that we're able to continue to introduce the community to those who are here, providing resources and services that we need. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to see if there are any more announcements. I kind of write them down on my little sheet as I'm working. I don't have a big staff that can talk in my ear and tell me what to do next.
Smile.
I don't have an iPad and all these different tools available. But guess what? I come to you authentically. I don't pretend to be something that I'm not. And I try to bring it to you straightforward in every instance. One of the last things, which I always tell you, all of these principles of Kwanzaa, Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujaima, Ujama, Nia, Kaumba, and Imani, all of those are interconnected. None of those are standalone principles. They are all interconnected. Again, when we do cooperative economics, that is impacting all parts of our life. And so one of the things that I like to say is cooperative economics come in what we do and what we say, what we keep and what we give away. So when we're talking about economics, if we are not good stewards of the things that we have, the things that we receive, and working with one another collectively and cooperatively, then it's going to be a negative to not only our personal economics, but ultimately to the economics of the community at large. I want to also remind us that we are a civil rights organization, the NAACP is, and our strength in knowing our power, in wielding our power, in leveraging our power, but most importantly, in keeping and protecting our power and never ever giving it away. Because part of the things that happen a lot of times, even in a situation like what we're attempting to do with regards to getting our people to support our own businesses, once we do that and we see positive outcomes, we get giddy. And I want to encourage us, don't get giddy because you start to see positive outcomes. Instead, look back, reach back, help someone else, and then improve upon what you're already doing, because people look for excellence wherever they go, and they have a tendency to be a little bit tougher on each other than they are on those who are not a part of our community. VBNAACP.org, you can go online and look at what we're doing, what other things that we're doing and everything at any time. I do encourage you to join us. And when I say join us, come to a meeting, take a look at what we're doing. Give us input, because guess what? We're human beings just like anybody else. You can identify an area that maybe you might want to participate in. Again, cooperative economics, housing, that's cooperative economics, because housing is where people can build up their equity. That's money. Equity is money, So when we talk about what we do in the association, when we talk about cooperative economics, remember, it impacts all parts of our lives. It impacts our health care. If someone cannot afford a doctor and allow themselves to get sick and sicker because they're afraid to go to get health care because they don't have the money, that impacts us economically. Simply because when they finally do get to the hospital, the cost grows astronomically because it's through an emergency room setting. And it's more expensive to go to an emergency room than it is to go to your primary care physician. So again, this is cooperative economics. I know I kind of talk a little differently than others, because people will say, well, if I'm going to talk about cooperative economics, I'm just going to talk about the banks. But I want you to see and understand how all of this is interrelated. Because if we simply just look at it from a standpoint of banking and buying, you're going to miss a lot of what cooperative economics is about. You're going to miss a whole lot of what it's all about. And so I want you to understand that there is a lot that is going on here in Hampton Roads, here in the city of Virginia Beach, things that are going to impact us short term as well as long term. And we're going to have to get more engaged in all aspects of our community. For years, only a few of us go to a school board meeting or go to a city council meeting. When I spoke before school board, Henderson spoke on my behalf, Patty spoke on my behalf, but there were other people in the chambers that were there supporting me. And so while everybody may not go up to the microphone, just the fact that there were people in the audience who were also there on my behalf is a positive. So a lot of people would say, well, I think because I've been in this city and I've been fighting for 30 some years, I think there should have been more than two people. Well, guess what? I think I had two of the strongest people speaking on my behalf than anybody in the chambers. So I'm not concerned as much about the numbers, but more about the message and more about what is our goal and our intent as we look at our children. You said, well, how did you go from politics to economics to school board to politics? Because they're all interrelated. I will tell you, I will assure you, the school board budget is huge. That's money. That's economics. How they spend that money is huge. That's whether or not it goes to a school that your child go to or a school that some rich person who has a tremendous amount of money and can pay for a private education, but choose to send their kids to public schools because Virginia Beach has basically set up a lot of private schools within the public school system because they fund some schools a lot better than they fund others. It's economics, people. It is economics. All of these things that I'm sharing with you today, and I know I did a plethora of information. I know I've given you a lot. And that's because I saw a lot over the last 2 weeks. And that is why I use this show today to try to feed you, and maybe I fed you too fast. But guess what? The good part about this program is you can go back and you can listen to 15 minutes of it, or you can listen to 30 minutes or 45 minutes or the whole hour. But guess what? You can also listen to it more than one time. Because if you're like me, there are people that I listen to on Sirius XM, and I will listen to that show again and again and again. Because each time I listen, I gain some more knowledge and I take notes. And I do that because if I don't take those notes, I'll forget. And so I want to be able to go back to my source and resources in order to be able to go and help others. Most of the things that you will see that I do these things because it's an opportunity to provide knowledge to others, or an opportunity for me to help people and walk them through a process so that they're able to reach that particular goal that they're interested in reaching. Again, today's topic was UJAMA, UJAMAA, or cooperative economics. And I chose that topic because women, and especially Black women, are one of the fastest growing business owners in the nation. And so cooperative economics is very important to us. Supporting our own businesses is extremely important to us, and especially supporting our Black women-owned businesses. A lot of times, we're not able to get access to the same type of funding that other groups are able to get access to. So where there are businesses that you can become a part of, some of these businesses will allow you to buy a part into that business as a funding mechanism to keep those businesses open. And if you're in a business, if you're able to do that, do it. Do it. And as that business grows, your money grows as well. So we want to make sure that we're looking at economics from all angles and not just from a narrow lens. And I hope that today's message has been important and important to you, but informative. Again, I do this show on a weekly basis. One, to have a conversation for information, a conversation for correction whenever necessary, and I do correct myself. And Henderson can attest to that. I'll come back if I messed up the week before. I'll come back the following week, and I said last week when I said,
yeah, we might have to make a correction. But
I
we only
may
human.
have
Yeah, we only
said it
human.
incorrectly. I want to correct what I said last week. And then I want it to be transformational. And I want that because we got a generation now in our next generation that we're going to have to prepare to be productive citizens in our society. And for the last few weeks, my mind has focused on the fact that I remember us when they talked about Y2K and all of these things that people were saying about Y2K, whether the world is going to come to an end. Once Y2K comes, all of this new technology is going to come, et cetera, et cetera. And much of that has happened. But we're 24 years into the 21st century. And ask yourself, what major impact have you had on the 21st century? And with that being said, I am Georgia F. Allen. This is GA for Justice. And I hope that some of what I have shared with you today will impact you, will maybe have make a difference in how you think about economics, how you look at your community, and how you support your community. And again, all of these different women that we talked about today, from Tarana Burke to Shirley Chisholm to Dr. Paulie Maury, please look them up. I don't use my platform to educate you on everything. I use my platform to introduce you to people that you will go back and begin to educate yourself. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Henderson, for all that you do for us, for our community, and for this radio show and this wonderful platform. And everybody, see you next week.
All right, you've been listening and watching GA for Justice with your community activist, Georgia Allen, and thank you so much. And don't forget to share this link. And remember, if you got young people that are 17 or older, will be able to vote in November, register them now. So when they turn 18, they'll make history. Until next time, we'll see you on GA for Justice with your community activist, Georgia Allen. Bye-bye.